Welcome to session 98 of the Bible in a Year commentary. If you started this series on the 1st of January, then today should be the 8th of April. Today we'll be looking at 1 Kings 14 to 16 and Psalm 98. But so far in 1st and 2nd Kings, we read through Solomon's reign and the splitting of the kingdom. David was old and dying. His son Adonijah seized on the weakness and set himself up as king. In response, David declares Solomon as king, thwarting Adonijah's attempt at the throne. David encouraged Solomon to be faithful and loyal to God, but then told him to kill all of his enemies. Solomon then killed his brother Adonijah as well as Joab and others. He married an Egyptian woman despite the fact that Deuteronomy 7 warns that intermarrying with other nations would lead them to worshipping foreign gods. It was looking bad for Solomon's reign. But then Solomon asked God for wisdom to rule well, and God blessed him with wisdom and wealth. We read the first example of Solomon using his wisdom as he judged rightly between two women claiming the same baby as their own. Solomon established order and structure to his kingdom. He appointed different leaders across Israel. We also read of how he became famous for his wisdom and how Israel began to flourish. Then Solomon started building the temple for God. Forming a trade deal with the king of Tyre, the temple was built along with Solomon's own house. He brought the Ark of Covenant into the temple and consecrated it to God. God met with Solomon a second time and warned him to remain faithful. We then read through the overview of Solomon's reign, which was marked with wisdom and flourishing, but also saw Solomon begin to hoard for himself and enslave the remaining Canaanites to build his infrastructure. Then yesterday we read as Solomon gathered for himself many foreign wives who led him to worship foreign gods. God rebuked Solomon and told him that once he died, his kingdom would be split in two. Rehoboam replaced Solomon and told the people he would be harsher than his father, which caused the northern tribes to split and start a new kingdom, with Jeroboam as their leader. Jeroboam led the northern tribes to worship idols in their own places of worship. But let's jump in with today's reading, 1 Kings 14 to 16. We've now entered the part of the book that lists the kings that came after Solomon. For most cases, it's just pure history, facts, names, and dates. Occasionally we get a specific story. There are a few things to focus on though. The kings of Israel are all bad. All of them cause the people of Israel to turn away from God. However, some of the kings of Judah do end up being good, and those kings tend to reign a little longer. Keep an eye out for those. We also see God guide these kings and his people through the prophets. Jeroboam, the new king of Israel, finds out that his son is deathly sick and sends his wife in a disguise to find out what is going to happen from the prophet Ahijah. Ahijah immediately knows who it is and tells her that not only is the son going to die, but all of Jeroboam's family are going to be killed and his kingdom is going to be given to someone else. As Jeroboam's wife returned home, the son dies. After some time, Jeroboam dies and his other son Nadab takes his place. Meanwhile in Judah, Solomon's son Rehoboam is doing badly. He's setting up altars and pillars to other gods and getting Judah to worship them. During his reign, the people of Egypt come and sack Jerusalem, taking all of the gold out of the temple. Rehoboam replaces the gold things with bronze things. Eventually, Rehoboam dies and his son Abijam becomes king. Abijam also did evil and reigned for 3 years before dying. Then his son Asa becomes king. Asa did good. He got rid of the altars that his grandfather Rehoboam set up and he led his people back to God. He reigned for 40 years. During his reign, Baasha, king of Israel, we'll get back to him, waged war on Asa. Asa made the poor choice of taking the riches out of the temple to pay the Syrians to fight against Baasha. Asa chose to turn to foreign kings rather than seek God's help. Eventually Asa dies and his son Jehoshaphat becomes king. But back to Israel. Nadab is king, but he does evil. He only lasts 2 years. A man named Baasha murders Nadab and takes his place, going on to murder all of Jeroboam's family, just as Ahijah predicted. Baasha was also an evil king, and another prophet called Jehu comes to Baasha to tell him what happened to Jeroboam would now also happen to him because of his disobedience. Baasha eventually dies and his son Elah becomes king. He was king for 2 years before his servant Zimri murders him and becomes king, killing all the family of Baasha. Zimri was king for 7 years, but there was plenty unhappy that Zimri had killed Elah, and so there was an uprising. Zimri was overthrown and Omri becomes king. After Omri comes his son Ahab, who continues to do evil. The northern kingdom is marked by short royal lines, as many of their kings are assassinated and overthrown. Rather than leading the people to follow God, the kings just fight for power and lead the people to worship foreign gods instead. But that's 1 Kings 14 to 16. Now let's look at Psalm 98. This psalm is not attributed to anyone and falls into the category of praise psalm. It is part of a small collection of psalms, Psalms 93 to 99, that focus on God as king. Here is a summary of the structure, but I would recommend checking out the written version of this commentary in the description to see the structure properly for yourself. We have verses 1 to 3, sing the Lord a new song for his great works. Verses 4 to 6, make music all the earth before the king, and then verse 7 to 9, let creation submit before its king. The psalm starts with a call to sing of God's great works. He is a God of salvation and righteousness for all to see. He has been faithful and loving to the people of Israel, but all the people of earth may experience his salvation. The psalmist then encourages all the earth to make music and sing before their king. The language suggests that a time of festival and celebration with musical instruments and singing is at hand. Finally, the psalmist turns to creation itself. May the seas, rivers and hill all roar, clap and sing. Why? Because the Lord is coming to lead the world. The psalm uses the term judge much like Israel's judges led them. He will lead with righteousness. Like many of the psalms in this section, this psalm focuses on the praise God deserves as king over all the earth, all peoples and all creations to sing and make joyful sounds because of his power and salvation. Thanks for joining us today. Take a moment to reflect on what you've read and share your thoughts or questions below. If you're watching in the future, then you can click here for the next session, or you can find the full playlist just down here. To receive these daily commentaries in your email inbox, subscribe via the link in the description below. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.